Good evening. It's such a pleasure to be joining you right here on the India Development Debate on ET Now. I'm Supriya Shrinate, and tonight we put the focus to where it should belong. The farmer protest in Delhi. It's slowly evolving as a big rallying point for the non-BJP forces. Leaders of various political parties with varied interests and agenda came under the same roof to hit out at the present government and particularly the Prime Minister and his pro-rich policies. There were Yachuri, Farooq Abdullah, Arvind, Kejriwal, Rahul Gandhi all sharing the dais and stage burying their divergent political ideologies. But Rahul Gandhi targeted Modi for cozying up to corporate honchos. Yachuri slammed the Prime Minister, even calling him a pickpocket. Echoing Rahul, Aadmi party's Arvind Kejriwal said the Prime Minister has hardly any time for farmers as he's busy helping Adani and Ambani get richer and richer. In fact, the political brinkmanship overshadowed the problems of farmers who are seeking a lifeline from the centre to tide over the current crisis. Politics over farmers is exactly what we're discussing right here on the India Development Debate this evening. Couldn't have asked for a better panel than this. Yogendra Yadav, founder and national president for Raj Party, joins us. Gopal Krishna Agarwal represents the BJP. Sanjay Jha represents the Congress. And Siraj Hussain, former Agriculture Secretary of India, is also here with us on the show this evening. Thank you very much, each one of you, for being with us. And Yogendra Yadav, since you were at the siege of protest, you've been there for the last 2 days. You've done various rallies across India as far as the farmer plight is concerned. The farmer protest was organized by multiple Kisan unions, and today the big headline is that politicians cutting across and burying their political differences rush to show their solidarity with the Indian farmer. There are two questions there. Are we once again seeing a very, very important agenda being hijacked by the political class? And the counter statement to that is that farmers are such an important political constituency. What then explains their present plight? I mean, how does this stress continue despite them being such a strong political constituency?
In fact, both your questions are related. The fact that farmers constitute a little over majority of the country, and in democracy majority should matter. But in reality, they don't. And the simple reason is that while farmers are majority on paper, in reality, they do not vote as farmers. They do not unite. And uniting Indian farmers is one of the most difficult political projects, one of the most almost seemingly impossible political project. That's why political parties can hope to ignore them, overlook them. And that is why it is so critical to have political unity of farmers. And what we witnessed today was not so much of change of heart of opposition political parties. We have seen them all. We know what they did when they were in power. Some of them are still in power in some states, and we know what kind of things they do. So I'm not interested in the change of heart or any such thing. But what we witnessed today was that in the political market, if I could put it crudely, in the political market, the stock of the farmer has gone up. Political parties are now competing with each other to prove themselves more pro-farmer than others. That's exactly what we wanted. Because farmers, if they are aloof from politics, they would be victims of politics. Either they are used, hijacked, as you rightly said, or farmers must learn to control the reins. And today I felt for the first time, farmers are beginning to call the tune. And in politics, in electoral politics particularly, political parties compete with each other to say, no, I'm more farmer, I'm more farmer. This finally delivers whatever they have in their heart, even if they have nothing in their heart for the farmer. But this political competition leads to greater dividends for the farmer. So this is what we are witnessing. I almost glimpsed something which I would find beautiful, which is I thought I had a glimpse of what the agenda of 2019 election could be, which is farmers. And if election 2000, because this country has never seen a national election on farmers question, if farmers become the real issue of 2019, no matter who wins, farmers are net gainers.
Right. Fair point. Sanjay Jha, I will come to you. Is the Congress party willing? I mean, we saw your party president standing with all those members of the opposition today at the stage, burying their political differences, talking about the farmer. And I think I completely agree with Yogendra Yadav that successive governments of the past and the present government has done a lot of disservice to the farmer. But is the Congress party ready to base elections 2019 on the Indian farmer? Are you willing to let go of every other issue and focus on the farmer alone?
Supriya, what is the reality if you look at the hard numbers? Almost 750 million to 800 million people are dependent for their rural livelihood on farming as an occupation. And we all know that the rural distress has been particularly aggravated over the last four years since Mr. Modi became Prime Minister. I'm not saying that previous governments, Congress or non-Congress, were extraordinary in their achievements. But I think what Mr. Modi's government has done is to completely reset priorities. I'll give you one example, the data that Mr. Gandhi keeps repeating in all his public programs, which is that this government writes off 3,50,000 crores of corporate debt. And, you know, if you look at the willful defaulters list is humongous, nobody's even talking about it. Your NPAs are zooming above 10 lakh crores, nobody's worried about that. Mr. Modi is clearly got his agenda right. He believes that he must boost the corporate sector, and we don't believe that the corporate sector needs to be maligned, but he's doing it in a lopsided manner. He's focused only on that. The result is today that you have fake promises being made to the farming community. Now, we all know how an MSP, he made an electoral call and then reneged on the promise by going to the Supreme Court and filing an affidavit saying it was not possible. And when they have come up with an answer, it's cosmetic, and frankly speaking, it's a betrayal. As far as the other issue of doubling farmer income is concerned, we all know that is a statistical impossibility because they have achieved less than 3% over the last 4.5 years. So why would you sell pipe dreams? I mean, you know, it is basically the hubris and the arrogance, which is what the farmers are saying. They're saying, hold a special session of parliament, let all political parties discuss the issues.
No, 1 second. I will just request my... Okay, Sanjay, I will request each one of my guests to keep their answers brief because there are very important substantive issues about Indian farmers that we want to talk about. If you keep your answers brief, we'll be able to cover a lot of ground. Gopal Krishna Agarwal, this government is supposed to be politically astute. You manage a headline, you read a situation before it occurs. What explains the fact that unlike Devendra Fadnavis, who was very quick to respond to, and intervene by meeting the farmers, what explains the fact that there was absolute apathy in New Delhi to this farmer protest? The Prime Minister making no attempt, his government making no attempt to thrash out an agreement to preempt the opposition from taking the stage. I mean, what explains that? Are you in denial about the farm crisis? Are you dismissive about it? Because those are the two words that come to my mind when I see the government reaction to what we are seeing in New Delhi today, which is, you know, farmers from all across the country protesting for what is seemingly huge rural stress.
Supriya, I would like to tell you that last time when the farmers agitated in Delhi, our government was very active and most of their demands were met within 1 day. And our agriculture minister went there, met them, and other ministers also had a connect with them, and even Prime Minister office and Prime Minister himself looked into the matter, and those were resolved, and MSP, increasing MSP to 1.5 times was immediately announced. Supriya, second important point is that it is our government, Modi ji's government, which has identified the problem and has worked towards, committed itself to doubling of farmers' income by 2022, because simply increasing the production was not helping them. It has to be linked to the income generation.
But
that
the reality is it is
MS
not happening.
Committee has recommended risk mitigation. No, it is happening. We have done so many things. Insurance there, market access is there, neem coated urea is there, infrastructure coverage of irrigation area is there. No, but lot thing. No. Supriya, 10 seconds more. So the issue is that for most of the people who are today speaking in the stage today, political people, most of them were in the political power dispensation for last more than 65 years. If they had seriously done something, farmers would not have been in such a situation.
No, fair point. And
now
that's a part
they
that
are again
referred to in his opening remarks. But I will go across to the experts on the show. I'm sorry, I will have a timer on the show. I can't have all of you go on and on. But Siraj Hussain, coming to you, I will agree with Gopal Krishna Agarwal that some measures were taken to try and fix the agriculture sector. Crop insurance scheme, MSP may not be what the farmers demanded, but some amount of MSP revision did happen. There's ENAM, strengthening of the agri market, to Atal Bhujal Yojana aimed at groundwater management. You know, it will be dishonest to say that nothing was done. My question is, and what leaves me perplexed is, that why has the problem then not been resolved? I mean, I don't understand. With so much that's being done around agriculture, seemingly, at least on paper for sure, why is there such acute rural stress on India's farms then?
Actually, India's agriculture has been under crisis for a long time, but the current spate of crisis in the last 4 years is primarily because of two reasons. One reason is that the global prices of commodities have come down drastically, as a result of which our exports have been affected, and farmers of a number of crops have therefore been realizing much less from selling their crops than they were realizing earlier, say in the UPA period. So that is reason number one. Reason number two is demonetization, which has hit the rural sector very hard, and it has not recovered from that shock because the traders are missing from mandis. And as far as I know, I don't claim that I have all the information, but my feedback from the mandis is that traders are not stocking, because in many cases their income tax cases are yet to be finalized for 2016-17, and therefore they are reluctant to buy. EC Act is still in place. So these are the reasons which have changed. This government has done a number of good things as far as the agriculture sector is concerned. A lot of emphasis was laid on completion of irrigation projects, etc.
No, Siraj sir, give me a minute. You're referring to schemes that have been undertaken, but I am tempted to ask a question on remunerative prices because I want to go back to Yogendra Yadav. But a quick question to you, Gopal Krishna Agarwal, and my request really is please keep your answers brief, gentlemen. Gopal Krishna Agarwal, the biggest issue for farmers is the failure to get remunerative price for their produce. The mandis are one source point of all agri selling, where farmers sell their crops to licensed agents. Maharashtra government had actually brought in an ordinance to ensure that farmers do not have to go through mandis and sell their produce directly to end consumers and get market price. That had to be withdrawn under pressure. It was withdrawn by the Fadnavis government. My question is, why was it withdrawn? This dismantling of the APMC in some sense would have benefited, right?
No, definitely we understand that APMC Act has to be dismantled, and the mandis, local mandis have to be modified and reformed so that they have national market access to sell across India. And this is the crux of the problem, that the farmer getting only 2 rupees for his produce and the consumer is getting it at 70 and 80 rupees. The biggest chunk is the linking between the farm to consumer. That's the biggest problem, and we have identified it. Because APMCs, they have a strong bodies and they have very strong political connections with local bodies, and it's a state subject, therefore center is finding difficulty. We are trying to solve it through GST, e-mandis, and even given a model APMC Act for the states to implement, and putting pressure on the states that modify your APMC Act. It is the basic crux of the problem. That's what is harming farmers. It's not only the production, it's the risk mitigation is also there, market access is there. So we have identified the problems. MS
You saying modify?
Had identified, but
you are saying modify the APMC Act. When one government does it, under pressure it is made to withdraw. Okay, when your Maharashtra government does it, it was made to withdraw that modification that you just referred to. But Yogendra Yadav, from a larger point of view, has policy making in this country, and really this is an offshoot of the remuneration part of the question, has policy making in this country or price fixing in this country always done with a consumer bias? It is not done with a bias for the farmer. It is always consumer bias. You know, inflation should not go up, people should not suffer, pricing should be under control. And is the solution reforming the APMC Act, reducing the stranglehold over farm produce, perhaps the only way out for fair price? And of course, then export relaxation as well for the farming community.
You're right. The principal two objective of this country's agriculture policies have been production and welfare of the consumer. The government has always been very keen that the production should not fall because of the experience of the 1960s, and that for consumers the price should not go up. Both these are legitimate objectives, but there is something else in between. There is a producer. Producer has never been at the center of agriculture policy in this country. I would, rather than get into a larger thing, now that we have Mr. Agarwal and maybe he can answer these things. You know, I just happened to write a book last week on Mr. Modi Raj and what Modi Raj has done for the farmers. Based on that, allow me to ask just quick, sharp questions. One, on MSP. Here is a table that compares MSP of the last 4 regimes. Mr. Agarwal, is it not true that on every single commodity, the MSP increase under your government, including all the 5 years, is lower than both UPA 1 and UPA 2? Number 2, is it not true that the MSP that you have declared, let's say for this season, there is not a single mandi in the country where all farmers can sell all their product for that particular price? And I'm going by your official website, by no other source. Number 3, as for doubling of farmers' income, is it not true that in the last 3 years after that announcement, you have not even raised it by 5%? What are we talking about? And when your government talks about doubling of expenditure, doubling of budget on agriculture, sir, is that not a lie statistically? In budgetary terms, your expenditure has been exactly 2.73%, etc. What used to be with the UPA? Where is the difference? Why are we throwing such disinformation, misinformation in the public domain on agriculture?
Kind of agree with you. I'm tempted to take that question to Gopal Agarwal, but give me a minute. I will go across to Gopal Agarwal and put... Okay, Gopal Agarwal, you should take that question. Your MSP increase has been lower than UPA 1, UPA 2. Your expenditure on agriculture is just 2.73%. And so the obvious question that is being put forward is, you know, is it time that our skewed national budget for agriculture looks at growing leaps and bounds? I mean, shouldn't that be encouraged as well? Gopal Agarwal, a direct answer, please, quickly.
This MSP issue is considered under the CACP that decides the cost of production, and we have committed ourselves to doubling or giving 1.5 times of the cost of production, and the cost of production is decided by CACP where farmers, everybody is there. So that decides what will be the cost of each year, and therefore I don't have the comparative data of how much has been increased, but we have committed ourselves to give the MSP of 1.5 times the cost of production. The second thing is our focus is on reducing the cost of farmers manufacturing, and that's very important, that input cost of farmers have to be reduced. Just simply increasing MSP is not solving the whole problem, neither the production increase is solving. It's important that insurance, delivery of the insurance risk mitigation of farmers is also important. We have reduced the premium, we have introduced technological evaluation of farm losses, and even reduce the level of to 33% of the loss from the 50% of loss of the farmhouse. The farming community, the important part is that we have increased expenditure into rural areas, in irrigation areas. All these are helping farmers. So you have to go for a 360 degrees. And our import-export policy has also been aligned now more to the producer than to the consumer. The bigger issue is the link between producer
Gopal Agarwal. Gopal Agarwal, your answer is not to the satisfaction of Yogendra Yadav. It is perhaps also not to the satisfaction of the farmers. You wouldn't see so many of them protesting here in New Delhi, or the number of suicides that have been committed. But that apart, I want to move to Sanjay Jha. And Sanjay, I know you have been attacking the government for, taking loan, taking a credit cut or taking haircuts as far as corporate loans is concerned, but not waiving off loans. But is waiving off loan the only resort of the Indian politician as far as the farming community is concerned? Because it's important to point out here, there is institutional debt that is waived off, then there is the non-institutional debt, the non-banks, the non-financial companies, the local lenders, and that is a very vicious debt cycles that farmers are in. Is there need for a more scientific way to deal with the debt on India's farms, both institutional and non-institutional? Is there also a need to perhaps offer them a long-term rural credit policy? I mean, no, I'm just thinking out of my hat, which covers droughts, flooding events, and all of that. Because just saying farm loan waiver is addressing the problem with the band-aid. It isn't a long-term solution.
Supriya, I agree with you, and I feel that farm waivers only become necessary because circumstances force it to happen. And the reason why, the rural debt rises is because, one, procurements are not being done by the government as promised, and secondly, their prices aren't remunerative enough. So progressively over a period of time, the farmer's personal indebtedness balloons. And then what do? If you don't give a loan waiver, it will lead to the terrible circumstance of farmer suicides. And very disturbingly, you have the National Crime Research Bureau that has not released the data on farmer suicide for the last couple of years. It tells you how opaque this government is. But fundamentally, I believe that the difference between the BJP and the previous Congress government or other governments as well has been, one, political intent. And there are two examples I can give you of that. You remember the Mandsaur protest in Madhya Pradesh, where they first said it's a political movement. They actually shot dead 6 farmers, which I thought was cold, callous, and they had no remorse over it. And later on, they buckled down. I remember in Mumbai, where I live, when the Maharashtra, the farmers walked from Nashik to Mumbai. In the initial stages, the BJP called them as urban Maoists. So when your political intention is to look down at the farmers only as
but I have a very substantive question on crop insurance. Sanjay, I'm sorry, but I have to take a very important question on crop insurance with Siraj Hussain. And the Prime Minister's crop insurance policy started with a lot of expectations, sir. The latest numbers say estimated claims were 13,655 crore rupees, and 4 months after the Kharif crop harvest, only 402 crores have been paid against those claims. What is the problem? Claims are not being honored? Is coverage a problem? Because then you have this other allegation that actually the money is being pocketed by the private insurance companies at the behest of the farmers. This could have been a good defense. Why has it turned out to be a dampener?
As far as I know, the data for Kharif 2018 has not been released by the government. So I am not in a position to comment on the claims filed by the farmers for Kharif 2018. However, we have analyzed the data for 2016-17 and 17-18, and we find that in states which were affected by calamities like Tamil Nadu, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, the claim ratio was not very bad. In fact, in several cases, it was as high as 200%. And in many cases, it was more than 100%, which means that the insurance companies paid more than the amount of premium received by them. Now, there is a talk in the country that insurance companies are getting unduly rich and they are earning too much and all that. That needs a more detailed state-by-state analysis. I'm sure the government would be doing that, and there is a need to revisit the scheme. I understand that Niti Aayog is already doing that. So, analysis and correction of the scheme, if there is a problem, is the done thing. There shouldn't be any problem. But let me say just one more thing, even though it is not related to insurance. See, we have seen farmers march, and the farmers' income, according to the latest NABARD survey, is about 9,000 rupees a month. But there is also a very large constituency of non-agriculture whose income is just about 7,300 rupees a month. And also in urban areas, there is a very large organized sector which has not yet seen leaders like Mr. Yogendra Yadav, who could organize them and bring them to Delhi. They are also in great distress.
Right. Right. But Mr. Yadav, considering you're a part and parcel of what's happening right now, and you're in some sense, one of the organizing members of this protest, it's only fair that I ask you this last question. A situation assessment of India reported that more than 40% of farmers would like to quit agriculture if alternative opportunities were available. There is no surprise there. It has become unremunerative. Successive governments' policies have not helped them. But the reality is that the conversation on the Indian farmer always seems to happen as if it was an NPA, as if it was a burden. And I think, from my point of view, that conversation needs to change before anything else. What will it take for the politicians to change the course and contour of that conversation, where farmers are not a burden, they're not a liability, but they're an asset?
Absolutely. I think you've raised a very fundamental point, which probably we cannot get into the depth of in a television discussion. All I would say is that much of our economics and much of our intellectual life is imprisoned in the thought that we are condemned to repeat the trajectory of Europe when it comes to agriculture and industry. The fact is that we are not. We are not reliving the history of 17th and 18th century Europe. Our condition is different, and we cannot expect agriculture to become only 5% of our economy or any such thing. So we need to think of agriculture not as our past, not as a residue, not as a dustbin, but as our future, as aspiration. And in order to do so, certain fundamental reforms need to be made in agriculture, which have to do with land holding, which have to do with recognizing the fact that most of the cultivation is being done by non-owners today, which has to do with cropping pattern, which has to do with access of farmers to market, but which also has to do with revitalizing rural economy. Rural economy is not and cannot be only about agriculture. Rural economy needs manufacturing. Rural economy can absorb a lot of services. So a revitalization of rural economy is required. Despite all that, we demand these two measures. Why do we demand it? This is like an injection. This is like my patient is in ICU. I want to give him or her 2 injections so that she can come out of the ICU and a proper treatment can begin. That's why we say, above all, a law to implement MSP, not just higher MSP, but the most important question is whatever MSP is declared should actually be available to the farmer. It should become a legal right so that the farmers can demand damages. And number 2, a one-time loan waiver. Loan waiver is not a great idea, but currently Indian farmer badly needs it.
No, absolutely. And I think the voice of the Indian farmer needs to be heard loudly and clearly in New Delhi, because forget about the fact that they are an asset. They need to be treated like that. The conversation around the farming community has changed. And fiscal pundits who keep throwing the fiscal rule book at you each time you talk about a farm loan waiver need to understand that agriculture is given to vagaries of nature. And almost 50% of our population is associated with agriculture. You can't wish them away. We must not wish them away. But yes, harping on problems is not going to find us solutions. Politicians need to sit together and find viable solutions that is going to make Indian agriculture far more remunerative. Thank you very, very much. Yogendra Yadav, Sanjay Jha, Gopal Agarwal, and of course, Mr. Siraj Hussain with his expert views on this subject, joining us right here on ET Now. This is Farm Fury. We take a quick breather. There's plenty more that follows up right here on the channel. Stay right here with us.